Hi, hello, how are you? Today I decided to try and record on my iPad because, I don't know, sometimes it seems quality on the MacBook, regardless of the fact that it's a high end, as of 4 years ago, MacBook, quality of the video seems to be a little suspect. And the iPad eh, is also 4 years, but it seems to have a better camera. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully the sound is also okay. I've got a fan running in the background. We'll see if that impacts sound because my mic doesn't have the right lav to connecting to it. Such is the case. But hi, hello. Again, good afternoon. I slept a lot last night into this morning. Like a lot. And there's a sense of freaking exhaustion, right? And that is okay. That is absolutely okay to be feeling that is how it is for us, right? And you see my beautiful luck cat right there. You know those Chinese luck cats waving hands? It's actually a Japanese cat. If you care, he is a Japanese bobtail sunburst? Sunburst. I think it's sunburst. The way the orange kind of comes through the back fur there. I found them in a dump. A beautiful, full-bred cat in a dump as he goes away. He's also a scaredy bear. I have my barn cat here that's mostly brown, but at night looks like black, so he's Void. Actually, his name is Luna because we thought he was a girl initially. I have another cat, speaking of emotions, that's also a full-bred cat. She's a Russian ragdoll. I think a Russian blue ragdoll? No, a Russian ragdoll, not a Russian blue. Those are different. Neighbor had a Russian blue. Not to digress. The whole point of that is that the most amazing things in our lives are thrown out by others and discovered by us. And when we're in a constant state of fear and panic, we tend to throw those beautiful things out more because it feels like pressure. And other people who are in the opposite arena, this is how things come to you, feel like they've gotten something absolutely amazing and magical. And I'm sorry, we're gonna have to stand up. So the desk is rising. So what does that have to do with exhaustion? Well, how to piece that together. When you allow yourself to just take the rest that you need, you allow yourself to relieve the exhaustion of one element. Sleep is a powerful tool, not just for the body, but for the mind. A big reason why people who are extremely depressed sleep, and people who are very sick sleep, is because it's a place of restoration. So illness means it's restoration of the body, but also a little bit of the mind. And with depression, it's a restoration, although it doesn't feel like it in the middle of it. I will admit that sometimes it just doesn't. Which typically means you need more. But that resting quiets the mind. So you're not in the constant buzz zone of whatever. And people who have sleep disruptions, who deal with that wakefulness, do not know exactly how to quiet the mind. And it's buzzing with all sorts of things. Not necessarily happy and exciting thoughts. It's usually, questioning themselves. It's self-doubt thoughts. It's a practice that happened in youth and just steadily got worse. There's some chemical mechanics in there. There's some nutrition that can be addressed for it. But largely it's learning how to just settle the brain. And amid all of my huge stressors, particularly in the last 5 years, starting when I was in my deepest and darkest depression in 2019, going into 2020, I mean, right as the pandemic was happening, I was starting to feel better. Still a little bit in it, but still, somewhat better. And I decided, like all things do when we start changing ourselves for the better, that I needed to stop struggling with sleep and just let sleep happen. And in the weirdest spaces and places, the weirdest, which is the weirdest times, the weirdest dumpster fires, the weirdest thing, we find a little nugget that helps us through. And Wim Hof breathing helped. And just redirecting thoughts. If you redirect your thoughts enough, and you start thinking better thoughts, or you have something that isn't necessarily intellectually stimulating on the TV, but is nice, like if you have trouble sleeping, watching a murder documentary may not be the thing, depending on what kind of flavor your thoughts are. So you want to find something that is pleasant, that is like background noise, that you can actually wind up falling asleep to. I generally don't like TV in my room. I have one in my room out of space necessity, because typically my living room is taken over, and so half of my room becomes, 3 different rooms, an office, a living room, and a bedroom. But it's beneficial when you're sick, I will say that. But it's one of the mechanics of things to try and figure out as we continue to get more stress put upon us going forward. The importance of this is because the big things that are shifting and changing right now are big things that require you to be able to, in a moment, get restoration and then be ready to go. But if you don't practice that skill, if you don't practice while things are relatively, anxiety, there's feeding, there's so many things. That's Luna right there coming up into the window. There's so many things that are going on that you are not going to change in a minute. You're not going to have the fix-it idea in the middle of the worry, because the worry is crowding out any potential ideas coming in. And those ideas of fixing things are spontaneous, they're meandering, and it happens when your brain starts quieting down. You might be having thoughts going in, but you're not latching on to any one of them. And if you let those thoughts slide through, which is the other skill I had to learn, I had to just let it go. Like, I could feel myself grabbing onto stuff, and when you grab onto a thought, you are starting to tell yourself a story based around the theme of that thought. And sometimes that story goes into wild, crazy other areas that has nothing to do with the original thought, but what it does is it brings out that emotion. And that is what you're trying to nix. Because what drives what happens in your sphere of influence, in your immediate world, and the things that immediately happen to you and to others, what happens to others isn't for you, but if you are close enough to touch on it, it does become part of your experience. But your direct experiences, what is happening to you, is based not just on the quality of thought, but how you're feeling in that moment. Because everything comes through in waves, thought waves. Thoughts are an energy. And however that energy is, whether you call it vibration or waves or whatever, however that comes in and produces more anxiety, the anxiety is the feeling, the thoughts are the driver. And if you change the driver, or you just sit back and let the brain buzz as it's going to buzz become background noise, you can settle down your emotions to a place where you're just chilling and the brain is slightly buzzing and it's like bees, and you wind up going to sleep, or you wind up calming down, and you can feel that calm down. Your breathing goes from in your chest to more maybe in your mid range to sometimes if you get it to your belly, that's the best thing. Quickest way to do that is sometimes to use your breathing to calm the type of thoughts so that you can calm your feelings. I still do this. The skill doesn't mean you never experience anxiety, you never experience things. But the skill is used so that when something pings real hard, you know something is going to happen. And the context of where you are when that certain type of ping happens means, oh, it's going to be relating to this. And you are prepared in some way for the thing to happen. And the purpose is not to get you anxious over it. The purpose is to simply let you know, your guidance system, hey, something intense is going to be happening. I realized the difference in my car accident because about a week before, 5 to 7 days, I had this ping of incredible anxiety and of the thought of an accident. And I'd been thinking accidents for a long time since I probably had mono because one of my kids wound up getting it, probably from me. But I'd been sick for 2 weeks. I mean, I thought it was the flu. I didn't go get it checked out, but it was the worst, and I just couldn't drag my ass anywhere. And finally, I got to a place where I felt better in some regards, but my brain couldn't brain. And I got behind the wheel to go to work because 2 weeks back then was a week too long to be out and not working. Things were behind. I had to get shit done. And I scraped along the side of my car against a tree turning because I turned too tight. I didn't have enough presence to understand, to see what I needed to see to not do that. And there was a delayed response there. And then also clipped it with the front end a second time, twice in the same goddamn place. I swear the lady probably thought I was crazy. But that was that. I stopped my day. I had done probably maybe 6 or 7 houses by that point. I stopped and I went. But from that moment on, I realized that I was missing something because there had been a sensation that told me just stay home, and I was pushing against it so hard when I got behind the wheel. And I didn't experience that same sensation again until the week before my car accident. I had never been in an accident. I had had fender benders, usually me and a tree, about a decade or more apart, or somebody had rolled back into me, tapped me at a stop, because sometimes you get too close at a stop and you may not know that the person has a manual and they, go to shift or go to moving gears, or they're just doing that rock back and forth and they're not paying attention to you behind them and they tapped you. I've been in a long line and bent down to reach for something, not realizing that because I wasn't in park, I had loosened up on the brake and was moving forward a little bit and tapped somebody in front of me. Very tiny, minor things that didn't add up to anything, that didn't really impact the car or their car, but it did impact my car with that tree. And I had that feeling, I guess it might have been a day or two before I decided, because I was trying to push myself out of the house. I was trying to push myself to get to a point where I felt good enough to go do it. And from then on, I paid attention. I paid attention to what that feeling was. I paid attention even more to how I felt. So if I had a cold and I just didn't have enough brain, I didn't go get into the car. When I when my migraines start, there's a certain sensation that will start to creep over. And I was always very good that when that sensation creeped over, I would stop my day and go back home, because it was a precursor sensation of, this is going to get stronger, it's not going to get better. Because sometimes it would start and ease back, and that sensation would be happening when I'm at home versus out at work. Because I've been doing major driving for my job, for work, for the last 11 years. So, examples. It is very important because once you get more attuned to yourself, you can understand and you can see, there we go, the magic things that can come into your life. Talking about a cat being a magic thing. Yes. Talking about my dog being a magic thing. Yes. Because what helps me feel like I'm having a fulfilled life is to enjoy my animals. And to be able to feed them without anxiety and take care of them without anxiety. And largely, that has been true. But when your world starts changing in a major way, and you start having big scary things come in, it occurred to me with one of my, I'm a mom, how do you prepare videos, is that this discussion feels a lot like woo-woo, but it's a lot of psychology with a little bit of woo-woo. I am one of those people who firmly believe that you get what you feel about most. You get how you're feeling. You get how you're feeling. And though that's really scary with major things that happen, when we understand that it's part of the experience, we can navigate those emotions better. And the mistake people make, both in the gurus who aren't really fully into things but are doing financially well enough to start talking about it, and those who really do know the differentiation is that when you're being called to go into a more positive mindset, positivity doesn't mean abject happiness and bliss. You cannot go from feeling extremely depressed or unalive yourself kind of depression to completely blissful just like that. You go up through a grade of emotions, and you can either do it in a controlled manner where you are directing it, or you let the circumstances around you dictate that. And that's the biggest differentiation. Do you want to dictate what happens in a scenario, how you react or respond to a scenario, which is why there's a difference. Reaction is immediate, uncontrolled. Response is you've taken time and then you're responding. And the response can still be somewhat reactionary in high emotional context. Nobody stays absolutely cool all the time. But it is to allow the feelings that hold you back and drag you down to be processed, and you start disassembling them. Oh. So, leading up to my car accident, there were a few days off, and then I started telling my youngest, you can't go with me for the next few days. You just can't go with me for the next few days. Because I couldn't tell if that thing was because the car was going to put out again, because I just had the engine replaced and gotten the car back, but it was starting to do weird things again. Or if it was something related to a trip that we had planned. We had tickets and Airbnb and whatnot to go down to a Renaissance fair and to do an overnight down there. And it wound up just being the car accident. But it was far less stressful on me for it to be just me in the car and not involve my kid. Because that and that may have been what was needed. That may have been something to go, what can I do? How can I control the situation? And the day of the accident, I didn't feel anything in particular. There was nothing that said today was the day. It was just enough of a warning for me to do whatever I could comfortably, and for me to have a little bit of a worry is the car going to help us get down to this thing? Because I had already spent money to get us there, and it was the first major thing that I could do in a while. fun thing like that I could do in a while. And there are a few other things that we weren't able to go do. I think largely because of the car accident after that. But it helped. It helped for me to handle the situation. And me in a crisis, I'm great. I have very good crisis control. But I also admit that while I was running around during that day, immediately after the accident, a bunch of worry stuff was happening and coming through, old worry stuff, the impact of it, how long I would be out of work, what am I going to do for paying all the stuff to pay for, rent and whatnot. And before I handled other things very well, in that moment, I was so pissed at the other driver, so pissed at him, because it didn't make sense that he just turned in front of me like that. And so I was also reactive in that moment too. And what was reacting was old fears and worries. And then I started handling it. So I was mad, I was shouting, I was pissed. But in that moment of accident and being injured, you don't actually feel it. That part absolutely could handle a lot better and figure out how to handle that better. And what that is doing more of what I'm doing now. Recognizing that and going, okay, if in the immediacy of something serious like that, I need to be able to be more aware of the situation. I need to be able to be more aware of what's going on. I need to not be shouting and screaming like that. And about 10 minutes of me being not quite feeling the pain yet. I didn't start feeling the pain for probably 20 or 30 minutes in my arm. And by then, ambulance was there and I was getting medication. But if other things were needed for me in that moment, would I have been able to shut off the reactivity to be more responsive? I think I would have if the situation presented differently. But enough people were there that I didn't have to do anything else. I could just be the injured person. And still, I didn't like how I responded in that regard. This is important though, because as things happen, you want to be more in control. And in those 10 minutes, I was not in control. Hell, a big part of me and then being thrown into, I find it difficult to drive. I love driving. I love driving around. I love doing trips. I find it very difficult and I feel more anxious heading into days that I have to work. And that's affected things. And I've talked to my therapist about it. We've talked about maybe some anti-anxiety medication, and I refuse because I tend to be susceptible to the side effects of those medications. And because there are some medications that treat migraines that are, the migraine treatment is secondary to typically anxiety or whatever else. Over the years, they found there was a good overlap there. And all the worst symptoms is what I freaking got. The side effects, not the absolute worst, but some of them. And I'm like, I refuse to do those because I can't handle that. Affecting dreams and some of the weird sensations, sometimes the weird thoughts that come in. I'm like, yeah, it's not worth that. So this is the other thing, is that I'm learning how to deal with that and manage that so that the joy that I have in driving isn't fucking stolen anymore. And I'm talking 6 months of dealing with it. And a break from driving was a big help. Going back to work the last few trips, I think I've driven 3 times for work. I am a lot less anxious because I spent that month just replaying, enjoying driving again and replaying how I want that and controlling as much as I can control. That was a recommendation from my therapist, who I did see a couple times during that being off from work. But this may seem like a really mundane and boring thing. I can't make it more exciting, not in 25 minutes. It is simply my real world experience and offering what could happen. It is not something, and I've been working on my brain and the stories and the reactivity and the thought process in my head for a decade, since fucking 2015. The summer of 2015 I finally found something to lock into, where I felt in situations where it was a lot of things that were out of my control, I found I could regain control with me. And in reviewing everything, a majority of the time, things actually do work out for you. And if they don't, you have to reflect on how do you think about things. The more you think things don't, the more they don't. The more you think things do, the more they do. And when the really good things that have happened come into place, if you can review kind of how you were thinking, it's super hard to. But if you're like, yeah, I felt like I was in a really good place and these things were really starting to happen. Okay, it doesn't matter how that good place started. It matters a correlation of ease, less anxiety. Maybe you were in a safer place. Maybe you were not hanging around certain people and you were hanging around other people, and you really were able to either be more yourself or to not have so much worry or to not deal with so much bullshit, and you could focus a little bit better on what you actually wanted and what you were willing to let in. When we ask for life experiences, I mean, legitimately, certain things, whether it's to go see someplace, whether it's to have a certain job or work for a certain company, or to what, you know, be with sometimes it's a specific person, but a specific type of person, that requires you to be able to receive it. In order to receive it, you have to be the person who has it, the person who's experienced it or experiencing it. And you kind of have to be in that space. Not kind of, you absolutely do. Because it's the same level of vibration. That's the woo-woo part. But it fucking works. Like it fucking works. Like, I don't think any of my former classmates in Montana have ever been back to Hawaii. Maybe one, because she was in the Navy. But I don't know if she ever went to Hawaii. But I did. Because my belief was, yeah, I'm going to come back. And a year and a half later, I was back. After training, I got those orders to be in Hawaii. I knew Hawaii was an amazing special place. And it was going to be a key special place for me. And it was. Because I had a thought driving around with my mom trying to find the same place that she lived as a kid, because her dad was Coast Guard and he was stationed there for a couple of years. And how everything was, all of that. All of that. All of that stuff. My thought was this would be a great place to experience living for a while. And I just let it be that. And then once we got on the plane, because my parents came with the school and the school, our senior class trip, they were in a separate space. And I hung out with them for a day. And yeah, they everybody said that was their belief at the moment. And I was like, oh no, I'll fucking be back. I was back. My mom got to be back. My dad got to be back. My mom got to be back longer than my dad because I had to have a surgery, and she came out to hang with me while I recovered for that month. And wound up being 2 months. And then, yeah, when I got sick again, when I got the, I guess, encephalitis is what we're still calling it. She came back out again. It was out for several months. So amazing things can happen. And in order for there to be a space for the amazing thing to happen, some things have to kind of fall. Some things have to fall apart. They have to disappear. They have to go away. I know this is a longer video, as all of mine are. And if you go through it and listen to it in the background, I hope it helps. But in order for you to be at your best in such unknown situations as we're going to be presented over the next few years, really developing these skills, even if it's just a few months before shit kicks off, is better than not, and continuing on and stuff. And you don't know what kind of good stuff you're going to get from between here and there. and good stuff that's going to help. Whether it's community, whether it's people, whether it's weird, lucky circumstances, whatever it is. All of that. Right? It starts up here because this drives how you start feeling. And if you don't have particular thoughts, sometimes how you're feeling, if you're super anxious, will develop more anxious thoughts. And in either case, breathing and re-shifting those thoughts is all that's necessary. And I'm not asking you to immediately get happy or to find something to be happy. I'm asking you to go from this anxious space up here to easing that feeling up and just being fucking neutral. It's like nothing is really rocking your world at the moment. And when you ask yourself, what am I anxious about? That's the moment where you can take hold of those thoughts and turn those thoughts to, what do I want out of this situation? What do I really ultimately want? And just think about that and feel neutral or feel better. And as that anxiety brushes back up, do more breathing and get that anxiety to shoot. It's to calm it and to calm that response in your body so that you can, so that you can proceed into a better feeling space and make it through. It's all about little tips and tricks, not just for a really good life, ultimately, but to not wind up in misery town or stay there, to help pull yourself out of there. Because the clarity, the solution needs room to come in. And if you've got nothing but the, oh my God, nothing ever works out for me, then the solution that would work out for you can't come in. It's going to come in with the, I guess that's what you're ordering. More bullshit. Universe doesn't understand that. Universe doesn't care. Universe is just giving you what you want. And you may not have specifically asked for a scenario, but your thoughts and your anxieties did for something to reaffirm the fucking feeling. So shift the feeling to reaffirm it. 50.1% of the time. Half, slightly more than half. Barely more than half, which is more than what got the Cockwampel Taco elected into office. You have to do slightly more than that just to make things look brighter. It's never 100%. It's always that. And taking that negative feeling and translating it and transferring it into a system of thought that goes, oh, yeah, I'm absolutely, yeah, that is a worry. But here's what I want out of this situation. Here's what I would like. You know? That's what we're talking about. Okay? All right. Well, I hope to see you on the streets.